This interview was recorded at the Psychedelic Science 2025 in Denver, where we spoke with leading voices in psychedelic research, therapy, spirituality and policy. Norman Ohler is a German author and investigative journalist, best known for his best-selling book, Blitzed, which explored the hidden history of drug use in Nazi Germany. In this interview, we delve into the lesser-known stories of how psychoactive substances shaped war, power and propaganda, and discuss the darker sides of psychedelic history, including their potential for misuse. Norman, you are not a historian. How and why did you decide to write a historical book about drug use and Nazi Germany?
I wanted to write a novel, actually, but my publisher said when he saw the copies of the archival documents that the true story would be more important than just a novel, because in a novel you don't know if it's fictionalized or not. So I decided to write a non-fiction book, my first non-fiction book.
Have you ever had experiences with drugs before you wrote this book?
Yes, I took LSD when I was in my early 20s and have since been interested in psychedelics. And they have influenced my writing. I wrote novels before, but I never wrote specifically about substances like I then later did.
You, as a German author, you study a very sensitive period of history in the Nazi era, and Germany did a lot to come to terms with its past. Do you think that your books also contribute to this reconciliation process?
Well, Germany always claims it does a lot to come to terms with its past, but it actually does nothing, or at least it learns nothing from the past. It's again becoming not exactly a fascist country, but it supports fascist policies around the world. So I don't really think we have learned enough from the past at all, maybe except from my books or contributions of people who draw different conclusions from the violence that has happened. And these conclusions are, of course, no violence and freedom, which also includes freedom of the mind, of course. But this is not what's happening in Germany right now.
But are you happy with the reception of your book in Germany?
It's been well received. I could wish for more readers, obviously, always. But I think, well, I mean, the book about LSD was not so well received. Well, it was well received, but not many people noticed it, unlike the book about Nazis and drugs that was noticed by a lot of people. So the psychedelic scene in Germany is quite small. It's quite a conservative, narrow-minded place.
Some people criticized your books because they say that you are mixing fiction and facts. How would you respond to those criticisms?
I never mix fiction with fact, actually. My non-fiction books are all based on fact. There's nothing invented. They're just written in a fluid, maybe more narrative style than old school historians use. So I guess this is the reason. I mean, it was basically one historian. I think he confused academic writing with my more popular non-fiction writing, but I don't invent anything.
Okay. So the Nazis, they promoted racial purity and clean life, and Hitler was a vegetarian. At the same time, they distributed millions of pervitin pills among the soldiers of the Wehrmacht. So how can we make sense of this contradiction?
Well, that was part of the fun of writing the book, to expose that double standard, basically. I mean, the Nazis claimed to be an anti-drug government, which is bad in itself, you know. The government should not regulate the drug consumption of people. It has no business in doing that. But they used it for propagandistic reasons, saying like, we're cleaning up the country, we're going to create a healthy population, and then at the same time they abused one of the most notorious substances, which is methamphetamine. But it wasn't labeled as a drug, it was just a normal medicine at the time. I mean, not normal, but it was a legal medicine at the time. So it also shows us that what we consider drugs or what our governments make illegal is is often a political choice and has nothing to do with the health effects of these substances.
And in your other book, Tripped Nazi Germany and the CIA, you trace the kind of hidden lineage between the early Nazi research and the CIA studies on LSD. Can you talk more about this link between the two?
Well, the Nazis, the SS, did psychedelic experiments in the concentration camp of Dachau, and there was a connection between the CEO of Sandoz, the company that developed LSD, and Richard Kuhn, who was a leading Nazi biochemist. And Kuhn received half a gram of ergotamine in October 1943 from Switzerland. And when Kuhn was interrogated by the Americans after they liberated the western part of Germany, he told them about this LSD research that they had done. Nazis were looking for a truth drug which they could use in interrogations to extract secrets from people. So the Americans were very interested in that and then conducted their own truth drug experiments with LSD. First the US military and then the CIA. And then the CIA actually pressured also Sandoz not to distribute LSD to the Eastern Bloc. So LSD, because of its Nazi past, did not have the chance to become like a global health medicine.
So that's the kind of darker side of the history of LSD. And when we celebrate the Bicycle Day, on the 19th of April, where Albert Hoffman discovered LSD, we never think about that there was a war that time in Europe.
That's true. Yeah.
Do you think that Hoffman knew about this? About the Nazis' experiments?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a bit strange. In his book, LSD, My Problem Child, he basically blames the American hippie movement for the legalization of LSD, that they kind of overdid it, like Timothy Leary, they did too much, so the government had to stop it. He doesn't go into the 50s, what happened. He doesn't go into the 40s, what happened. So it's like a void in his LSD biography. And I don't know if he was really so naive and didn't know, I find it hard to believe because he knew a lot, So maybe he just decided to keep hush about this. And I think it's a mistake, and I think it weakens his book. But I don't know, it would be interesting to ask him, but it's not possible anymore.
So what happened exactly in the concentration camps? Do you know about the details of what kind of experiments the Nazis did with these drugs?
Well, I saw 2 pages of a conclusion of the tests, and the tests were called something like tests for the extraction of secrets through chemical means. And I read also one trip report of an inmate who received a psychedelic in Dachau. And he had an amazing trip. Like, he really liked it, which surprised me in the beginning because I thought it must be horrible to have a psychedelic experience in the concentration camp. But he was so happy to experience something else, at least for a couple of hours. And he told the SS supervisor, how great it was. So SS was a bit disappointed because they didn't want to, give inmates a good time. They wanted to destabilize people. So these SS experiments were not successful for the SS. They were just like a little vacation for the people who were part of these experiments. But I also only read one report. Maybe there were other. There were other tests and with maybe other results, but they have not survived these reports.
So how did LSD find its way from this early true serum experiments to the underground scene in America and the hippies?
Well, when Kuhn told US military about LSD, LSD became an American deep state obsession, and there was a program called MK Ultra that was created within the CIA with its director Sidney Gottlieb, who came up with all kinds of LSD experiments done through universities in America, done through educational institutions, done by himself, by his agents. And one of the things they did at one point was to also give it out to volunteers or guinea pigs. Some were paid, some didn't know. There were also apartments rented where people were being invited and then was secretly given a dose of LSD, and then they, checked out how the people reacted. But some people also got LSD knowing that they were taking LSD. For example, Ken Kesey, he took part in a LSD experiment and received $75 for taking LSD for the CIA and then reporting. And he had the idea of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest while he was on LSD because he was working in a psychiatric ward. So he became a celebrated novelist. And this is just one example how basically the LSD got out of the, CIA kind of opened Pandora's box by exposing so many people to it. Maybe LSD would not have become so popular without the CIA. Because they opened it in a way to the cultural scene. While Sandoz, they only thought of it as a medicine, basically, as a medicine for therapy. John Lennon at one point said, we have to thank the CIA, they gave us LSD. This is probably not what the CIA intended to do, but through them it became more and more known, and then people started making it themselves once it became illegal. So once it was out of the box, it could not be contained again.
For yourself, what was the most shocking revelation you had during your studies?
That LSD is still illegal, because I think it's quite healthy actually to take it, and the government should encourage people to use it. Maybe not in high dosages. Maybe it's not good for everyone because it could be overwhelming. But that we don't have studies looking at it, for example, on a microdose level. We have some studies, but we lost like half a century of research since it became illegal in '66. That's quite shocking. We don't have a medicine against dementia, for example, and my mother is microdosing LSD since I researched a bit more and talked with her and my father about it, and she has very good results. So I think that we missed a lot of years in research for developing medicines that many people would need. And that's quite shocking, and I think our governments should be held responsible and accountable, and secretaries of health should be in prison for not promoting LSD, but for or secretaries for law like that make it illegal. They should be punished for their completely irresponsible behavior.
What do you think? And that's just speculation. What would have happened if Hitler would use LSD? Would it change him for the bad or good way?
Well, LSD does not really make you a good person, I would say. It's not a moral drug. It does change the energies flow in the brain, and the neuronal activities are changed. So there is a chance that you have different ideas and maybe overcome orthodox belief systems, but there's also the chance with LSD that your fixed ideology or your fixed belief system is enhanced, but that you actually think you get a feeling that it's even more important what you are thinking. So there's no guarantee that Hitler would have become a peacenik and stopped the war and saved all the Jews. I don't think it would have happened. Hitler used a lot of opioids. Maybe it would have been good to see Hitler on LSD. It would have been an interesting experiment.
Did he use pervitin too?
I only found 2 times in the notes of his doctor where he received pervitin, which is not much, It was not his drug of choice, I think. I could only see that he took a lot of opioids. and hormones and vitamins.
We usually celebrate psychedelics as a way for spiritual transformation and liberation, but your books reveal a darker side of psychedelics, that they can be used for manipulation by power. So do you think there is a risk in the future that psychedelics can be used in this way by authoritarian movements or people?
I think so, yeah. I mean, so it's good actually to be aware of that. Also, for my new book, I examined the ritual of Eleusis in ancient Greece, and that's always seen as this liberating ritual for everybody, but I see it more as a conditioning ritual by the state of Athens to create, to condition its citizens. It was a ritual for the privileged white, Greek in this case, mostly males, even though women were also allowed to take part in Eleusis. But it was basically to install a certain doctrine in people. It was not allowed to talk about it. It was like a cult that was organized by the state. And we always stress that we're coming from this classical ancient Athens so-called democracy, which was basically a slave-holding society, a privileged white supremacist, fascist place, So it's quite possible that, for example, the US administration will legalize psychedelics and then do it in a way, because RFK wants to do that. But it could be, legalization is, in general, it's good, it should be done. What should not be done is that governments have control either way, either designing the use of drugs or prohibiting the use of drugs. This should be done by the people and not by governments. So Eleusis is a very bad thing that happened in history. Even though it's great, that so many people probably took a psychedelic, but the way it was done is problematic. So in the future also there could be problematic ways. So we have to be careful. Nation states are the problem, governments are the problem. We don't need kings, we don't need presidents, we don't need this apparatus. We have to get rid of all of that. We have to create a planetary, egalitarian society.
And you think that psychedelics can contribute to that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, they must. Without psychedelics, it's not possible. Because we have to liberate our minds, and psychedelics can help with that. They have very good tools for humans to understand who they are, where they come from, and where they want to go.
My next question would have been, what will be your next book about? But you already answered that. It seems to me that you have a kind of peculiar interest in these suppressed stories of drugs and psychedelics. What makes these stories so interesting for you?
I don't know, I just don't like propaganda somehow. Probably no one likes it, but for me that was always a big topic when I grew up in West Germany, which was a highly propagandistic system during the Cold War. So I always thought that through the writing you can get closer to the truth. Truth being a weird concept, of course, but there is some, I think writing can be neuroplastic, basically. It can have an influence on your brain when you read something, when you read literature, that lets you see the world maybe in a fresh way. I was always trying to work against conditioning, because the system is always trying to condition us, especially the modern capitalist system. So I see this as my political agenda to work against these fascist tendencies of capitalism, which are now, so strong again.
So are you concerned about the commercialization and spiritual materialism, which is now infiltrating the psychedelic field itself?
I'm not really an expert on that scene, so I'm not that concerned with it. I'm more concerned that it's still illegal. But of course, for example, in California or in many states in America, cannabis has been legalized. And as far as I can see it, it did not lead to a development that big pharma companies are now trying to monopolize on cannabis. It seems more that small companies have the chance to sell their product in dispensaries. So I'm not that much concerned about it, but obviously people who are more knowledgeable in that field maybe should set up rules and regulations how a free psychedelic marketplace should be organized in a way that actually people benefit from it and not some shareholders, which is the main problem on this planet right now.
Are you happy with the new cannabis legalization process in Germany?
No, it's totally ridiculous because you can't buy it anywhere. I mean, it's legal to smoke it, but you can't get it. So it's like a half-assed legalization. And the new German chancellor, who is a right-wing guy, already talked about taking it back again. So Germany is not liberated at all, unfortunately.
How do you see the role of MAPS here in the US and this conference? Do you have anything to share?
I mean, MAPS is really trying to work for legalization of psychedelics, and I think it's probably the most powerful player in this field here. So I think it's great what they do, and that they continue even with the blow they received mankind received last year through the totally ignorant FDA. They just have to continue fighting for freedom. I think it's good.